Ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching the end of the day, and I congratulate you all on your patience, and I know we're over time, so I'm going to try and be pretty quick as I rush through this presentation. It's the Global Asbestos Panorama 2008, and I want to discuss a few issues with you. The announcement made on July 13, 2001 by the International Olympic Committee that Beijing had been elected as the host city for 2008 set alarm bells ringing in the EBAS community. Knowing that China is the world's largest asbestos consumer, we wondered if the Green Olympics, as they were being promoted, would be constructed with white asbestos. This is a picture of the Bird's Nest, which is the stadium in Beijing for the Olympics. So I made numerous attempts after 2001 to find out about the use of asbestos in the Olympics. I sent emails to the official Olympic website and the International Olympic Committee. They weren't answered. Go figure. So as work progressed on the Olympics, China's reliance on asbestos increased between 2001 and 2006. Nearly 3 million tons of asbestos were used in China, and the annual consumption increased by 35% over this period when the Olympics were being constructed. So you've got the data here. You can see for yourselves. So as official sources refused to disclose information on this subject, unofficial sources were contacted, and I sent emails to everyone, to scientists, academics, businessmen, people who were in the cement industry, trade unionists, and grassroots activists. And an unofficial consensus emerged, which supports the following statement. By official mandate of the Chinese government, the use of asbestos in the construction of the Olympic buildings has been prohibited. This may be true, this may not be true. This is the consensus which has emerged from the people I have spoken to. And if any of you are going to go to the Olympics, I just ask you to take a sample and bring it back, and we'll get our friends to analyze it. So, but my question is, if they're not using Olympics, this is what I want to know. If it's not safe enough, if asbestos is not safe enough for the Olympic buildings, how is it safe enough to be used elsewhere in China and elsewhere in the developing world? And this is a cartoon. You can see a friend of mine expressed my concern and my confusion in this cartoon. I think it says pretty much all we need to know. Now, okay, where is asbestos being used? And this is some new data that was sent to me by Bob Verder of the USGS survey, and he sent it to me a couple of weeks ago. And it's the latest that we have. It's about 2006, so you can see where these countries are. Some of the top users, such as China, Russia, Kazakhstan, are producers and consumers. There is only one country that mines asbestos but does not use it in any significant amount. In fact, in 2006, country X exported nearly 300,000 tons, 50,000 more than it mined. Can you guess the name of country X? Let's see. Second on the list, Canada, of course. So here we have the tons, and you can see that there are 6 countries that are prominent. And this is an analysis of the data from the last 2 tables, and what we can see is that the total usage by the top 12 consuming countries accounts for 93% of global consumption. 12 countries, 93%. Asbestos markets in Asia and Eastern Europe account for the majority of consumption, 92%. Among the top 12 users, the 3 which have ratified the ILO Asbestos Convention use 25%, and those which have not ratified the convention use 74%, and 6 countries account for 98% of asbestos consumption. Now, the fact that all 12 of the largest asbestos-consuming countries are members of the International Labour Organization, but only 3 have ratified its asbestos convention, suggests that even minimal precautions are lacking for most workers. In the 3 countries which have ratified the convention, Russia, Brazil, and Zimbabwe, the existence of occupational safeguards is doubtful. So we can therefore conclude that the global use of nearly 2 million tons of asbestos every year takes place in conditions which endanger workers and the public. And just to sort of remind ourselves of what these conditions are, we have some photographs. This is the cover of Killing the Future, which some of you have kindly bought. another chap, other people working with it. And this is a picture for our Canadian cousins, which show, as you can see, Canadian asbestos there, LAB, chrysotile. And this gentleman here, the protection he has is that scarf, and this guy here in bare feet. So that's the safe use of asbestos in India. Well, what's happening now? Since the ILO and the WHO adopted positions in 2006 supporting global prohibitions on asbestos, industry stakeholders have been spending Canadian dollars, Russian rubles, and Brazilian reais like water. How else could the now Russian-led Chrysotile Alliance hold multilingual international conferences in Moscow in 2007 and in Vienna in 2008? To the event the Alliance mounted in Vienna last month, they brought 6 Brazilian trade unionists, one of whom has made multiple attempts to physically attack and verbally abuse the renowned Brazilian campaigner, Fernando Gianazzi. During one of his attacks, Tiago Nunes da Cunha Filho, I think we should credit him as name and shame him, he punched one of Ms. Gianazzi's female colleagues because she got in the way. He was going to hit Fernanda, her colleague interceded, and he punched her. Another time he broke a glass door when he tried to attack Fernanda. At a meeting in Bahia in 2007, he threatened the physical safety of her daughter, and attempting to intimidate this 11-year-old girl, took a lot of photographs of her. This is the quality of the people that support the Chrysotile Alliance. And I think, let me just say this man's name again because it gives me so much pleasure. He is Tiago Nunes da Cunha Filho, and I hope I mispronounced his name. So, those of us of a suspicious nature might ask how formerly impoverished trade unions from Eastern Bloc countries can all of a sudden afford to have these conferences. Before they had depended on financial support from global labor federations, now they're holding 3-day multilateral conferences in capital cities. Well, where does the money to produce this glossy English literature come from? Where does the funding for new scientific research on the health effects of asbestos consumption in India, Ukraine, and Canada come from? I think these are questions we can well ask, and we should deserve answers. Well, the money trail remains well hidden in most instances, but in 2007, the Indian government was forced to disclose that 24% of the funding for the research project Study of Health Hazards on Chrysotile came from the asbestos industry. They didn't want to tell our colleagues, but our colleagues applied under the Freedom of Information Act, and they had to give them some documents, and that's what they found out. Well, what did this money buy the industry? Industry stakeholders were given unique access to every stage of this project's development. The research was carried out under top secret conditions and without any input from trade unions, environmental NGOs, and public health campaigners. They asked, but the government wouldn't permit them to be involved in this research. Now, is it a coincidence, I ask myself, that at the same time a similar exercise was ongoing in Ukraine? And the title of a report issued in Geneva in early March, well, a couple of weeks ago, at a meeting of the Rotterdam Chemical Review Committee says it all. This is the title. I think they made a mistake. I think they meant, is it possible? But in fact, the title is, it is possible to use chrysotile asbestos safely? And this is what they concluded. I've brought some copies for some of our technical people here, and they're going to analyze this study. And they concluded, surprise, surprise, everything is fine. You can use chrysotile, or in England, as we say, everything is tickety-boo. Okay, so they say that bad things come in threes. So to finish off the trio of propaganda exercises masquerading as science, we have one more study. This one was commissioned, quote, to help further Canada's knowledge of chrysotile asbestos fibers in relation to human health, end quote. The scientific panel convened by Health Canada includes 2 of the chrysotile industry's favorite scientists, David Bernstein and Graham Gibbs, who on numerous occasions have given evidence favorable to the controlled use position. Although Health Canada refused to be interviewed about this project, a written statement was issued which states, yada, 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 da, 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 you can read it. And at the end it says, Science has shown that chrysotile asbestos is safe when used under controlled conditions. Canada regulates this safe use domestically and promotes it to its trading partners internationally. Well, yeah, we saw that Canadian asbestos used safely in India, so we know everything is fine and nobody would be misusing asbestos. So I don't think there's any doubt that Health Canada commissioned this research to obtain new evidence to justify its old position. And if by any chance selected panel members do not comply with their remit, there are always others who will. Well, what is being done? What are we doing? Well, we're pretty busy. In lots of different countries, things are happening. Civil society in countries around the world are working to raise public and professional awareness. Recognizing the consequences of increasing asbestos consumption in Eastern Europe and Asia, efforts are being made to spearhead initiatives in asbestos-using countries. If you ask me later, I can give you a bit more detail, but I don't want to go into too much detail because this is being filmed and I know how much the asbestos industry loves watching the ADAO videos. But suffice to say that in the beginning of this year, a campaign began to mobilize NGOs in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Russia to raise awareness of the asbestos hazard. In February, a two-day conference was held in Vienna by the Building and Woodworkers International to provide affiliated unions from Central and East European countries with updated information. Now, I went to Vienna, and in Vienna, I don't want to call him a gentleman, this person in the middle was invited. He is Boris Soshenko, and he's a member of an affiliated Russian union with a BWI, but he's also a founding member of the International Trade Union Chrysotile Alliance. And that fact left us in no doubt as to what he was going to say, and we were not disappointed. He actually said that he was questioning the authenticity of photographs that were shown in Vienna of asbestos victims, saying he was not convinced that anyone had died from a disease caused by chrysotile. It is relevant to remark that upon completing his presentation, he did not receive any applause. Okay. What else? Again, some more developments. On April 28th, international workers are going to highlight the complicity of asbestos stakeholder governments with national asbestos industries. And in June, there's going to be a 3-day international asbestos conference in Brazil. Again, there's going to be an ILO conference in June, and for the first time ever, there are going to be 3 asbestos symposia at the ILO conference. And to me, that's incredible, to have that sort of profile and to have that, possibility in 3 different symposia. 4? 3. English people always exaggerate. 3. That's really good news. And Barry's going to be speaking at one of them, and I'm going to be speaking at another. And so we're going to be there, and we're going to be saying what we need to say. And after that, there are going to be 2 days of asbestos meetings in Seoul, organized by NGOs and trade unions. And we're going to go from Seoul to Busan. And Busan is the headquarters of the asbestos textile industry in Korea. And unfortunately, they are now beginning to see people dying from asbestos disease there as well. It's unfortunate, but it's not unexpected. Okay, so that's geographical strategy, but there's also increasing cooperation between unions and NGOs and asbestos victims groups. And in November last year, representatives of many groups from civil society in Asia and Europe took part in the International Asbestos Conference in Yokohama. And my esteemed colleague Eric from Belgium was there, and Yvonne Waterman from the Netherlands was there. And I think it was a very impressive event. We have some other. Again, there was a forum on banning asbestos in the Philippines and an asbestos workshop organized by the National Railway Union in Yokohama. And I'm sorry this picture is so fuzzy, but I just loved it. Talk about, that's me and that's Barry. And we got to go up on this train, and afterwards we talked to these Railway Union members about the problems in their branch. And Barry can tell you about some of the issues which came up, which were very interesting. And I think we can safely say, Barry, that someone was lying to the railway workers. Yes, we can talk about that again later as well. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through this. We've got a meeting in Bangkok, the Collegium Ramazzini Satellite Workshop, and there was an asbestos session. And in December, there was some meetings in India. And I wonder if you guys can, this is Dr. Frank, and he was addressing some colleagues in India. So a lot of work is being done by a lot of different people in different places. And I was very pleased with this because this was my third time in Egypt, and we held the first conference, the first international conference on malignant mesothelioma in the 21st century. And so that was Egyptian doctors and European doctors and NGOs, and it was mostly talking about medical issues, but we did have a morning. So out of the 2 days, there was half a day on banning asbestos on different issues to do with that, and I was very pleased that we could accomplish that. So, nearing the end, just some more events that are happening, and I would urge you all to be part of this new Save the Rotterdam Convention campaign. I know our Canadian friends are working with us on this, and we need everybody to sort of focus on this, and again, there'll be more on that later. And of course, we can't forget this important event in Detroit, the 4th annual ADAO conference. This was the Mesothelioma Study Day in Manchester 2 weeks ago, and you'll note that we're all wearing our jewelry. Where is it? It's here, it's here. Yeah, your girl isn't dressed without her ADAO wristband. And so these are asbestos victims groups and lawyers and nurses and medics, and they all wanted me to express their solidarity with the ADAO. And I have to say that Linda and Doug made a huge impression last year when they spoke at the House of Commons, and you're well remembered, and your friends send you love and best wishes. And going back to where we started, I want to finish with the Olympics. The defining event of the Olympics is the marathon. And Linda mentioned that the race to ban asbestos was a marathon, and it is, and we have to run this race. This race is being led by asbestos victims groups. Linda, it's not a very good likeness, I don't think. The ADAO, Banjan, Ban Asbestos Japan, Abiva, Abrea, victims groups from all over the world, they're making the lead. And we're following them. We have the good trade unions, the BWI. I would include the CAW with this there, and the CAUT. And, well, purple wasn't my color, but there you go. And everybody else following behind. But it's a marathon, and I have to say, this person with the maple leaf on his tie, I guess he might represent Canada. And he's trying to misdirect us, but we will not be misdirected. We know where we're going, and we will continue this race, and we will not stop until it is won, until every asbestos mine is closed down and every asbestos victim is acknowledged and compensated. We will continue this race, and we will do it together. Thank you very much.